Imagine holding an ancient map in your hands, where every drawn line and every written name carries the weight of a lost era. Before the vast plains of the Shire, the towers of Minas Tirith, or the halls of Erebor, there existed an ancient land called Beleriand, a land shaped by epic wars, tragic heroes, and magnificent kingdoms, where J.R.R. Tolkien brought to life some of the grandest events of all Middle-earth. But here's the most intriguing detail. This land vanished forever, submerged beneath the waves after the War of Wrath. If you think you know Middle-earth because of the Lord of the Rings, get ready to challenge everything you think you know. Beleriand wasn't just a backdrop. It was a living, breathing character that shaped destinies and witnessed deeds that echo in elvish songs to this day. Like an archaeologist before an ancient map, you're about to embark on a journey through the lost lands of the First Age, uncovering colossal battles, legendary fortresses, and secrets buried beneath the waters of time. But here's the question that few ask. Why do these stories matter so much? Because every point marked on these maps holds not just locations, but also universal lessons about courage, sacrifice, and hope. This video isn't just a guide, it's a portal to a world that few have dared to explore deeply. So, adjust your cloak, sharpen your imaginary sword, and get ready to walk the ancestral trails of Beleriand. The map lies before you, but only the truly curious can decipher its secrets. Beleriand was a place of fascination and tragedy, a vast and rich land that served as the stage for epic events of the First Age of Middle-earth. Imagine a world where every valley, mountain, and river seemed to pulse with its own life, carrying tales of bravery and sorrow. Its borders were defined by tumultuous seas and imposing mountain ranges, guarding secrets that only the boldest would dare to explore. The map of this land is more than geography. It's a window into understanding the grandeur and struggles that shaped the destiny of J.R.R. Tolkien's peoples. The regions of Beleriand boasted impressive diversity, from the lush hills of Estelad to the shadowy forests of Nandungortheb. Every corner seemed to have a unique identity, as if the very stones held memories of bygone eras. It's no wonder that scholars of Tolkien's works often lose themselves in detailed descriptions of these lands. Walking along the banks of Sirion, or exploring the plains of Ard-Galan, one can feel that every step echoes into eternity. But don't think Beleriand was just beauty and tranquility. It was here that the fire of the Noldor's rebellion burned brightest. Feanor's journey and his followers transformed these lands into a cosmic chessboard where gods, elves, and men faced dark forces that seemed unbeatable. Many say that the spirit of Beleriand is one of resistance, an eternal lesson on the price of freedom and pride. Moreover, Beleriand's layout was strategic. Regions like Hithlum and Doriath became true strongholds during the Great Conflicts. It's fascinating to consider how geography influenced military decisions, political alliances, and even everyday survival. In such a vast world, careful planning was a matter of life or death. Whoever controlled areas like Himring or Gondolin, for example, held a decisive advantage over their enemies. And yet, no matter how much one admires the splendor of this land, a somber premonition hangs over every account. Like a melancholic prelude, we know that Beleriand would not last forever. Its waters, mountains, and forests were destined to vanish, swallowed by the sea at the end of the First Age. But before that happens, there's still much to explore. The events, the heroes, and the battles that brought this land to life. And this leads us to the next point, where we'll dive into the pivotal events and emblematic locations of this grand narrative. If there's something that defines the essence of Beleriand, it's the places that witnessed grand and tragic events. Throughout the First Age of Middle-earth, every corner of this vast territory carries not only imposing names, but memories carved by time. One such place is Lammoth, the land where Morgoth's cries echoed into eternity after his escape from Valinor. This chilling sound, they say, can be heard even in the quietest corners of the Lord of the Rings readers' imaginations. There, more than just a region, stood an initial landmark of the eternal war between light and shadow. Another iconic place is Nevrast, Turgon's first home before the founding of Gondolin. Situated between mountains and the sea, Nevrast was a tranquil, almost poetic refuge where the Noldor could breathe in peace, even under the growing shadow of danger. However, this calm was only temporary. Turgon, moved by visions and omens, left Nevrast to establish one of Tolkien's greatest wonders, Gondolin, the hidden city. Surrounded by impregnable walls and protected by ancient secrets, Gondolin became a symbol of hope until its fateful end. And speaking of decisive events, it's impossible to ignore the burning of the ships at Losgар. It was there that Feanor, consumed by pride and obstinacy, burned the ships that had brought his people from Aman. This act was not just a desperate strategy to sever ties with their pursuers, but also a blazing symbol of betrayal and division. The flames of Losgar lit up Belerion's sky and echoed throughout Middle-earth's history, sealing the Noldor's fate. Another crucial stage was Hithlum, a cold and melancholic region that served as a temporary home for many exiles. It was there that Fingon, with legendary bravery, rescued Medros from Morgoth's clutches in an act that redefined alliances and paved the way for even greater battles. Hithlum wasn't just a refuge, it was a front line where the icy winds brought not just cold, but the whisper of uncertain times. Finally, we arrive at the fall of Gondolin, one of the most striking tragedies of the First Age. The city that shone like a star in the heart of Beleriand was betrayed and ravaged by fire and darkness. Dragons and Balrogs marched through the once untouched streets, while heroes like Tuor and Idril desperately tried to save the survivors. This event marked not only the end of an era, but also an irreversible shift in the balance of power in Beleriand. And where there are battles, there are stories of courage and despair, leading us to the next chapter of this epic journey. The battles fought on Beleriand's vast plains and mountains weren't mere clashes of swords and shields. They were cosmic confrontations between light and darkness, hope and despair. One of the first battles that shaped the destiny of this land was Dagor Nuin Gileath, the battle under the stars. Imagine Arda's starry sky illuminating the steel of elven swords as Feanor and his followers faced Morgoth's dark armies for the first time. It was a bittersweet victory because, despite the triumph, Feanor met his final fate at the hands of Balrogs. J.R.R. Tolkien reminds us here that even the greatest warriors can fall, but their stories are never forgotten. Shortly after came the terrible Dagor Bragolach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. The plains of Ardgalan, which were once fertile and green, turned into a sea of fire as Morgoth unleashed rivers of lava and black smoke from the depths of Angband. Entire armies were consumed by fire, and fortresses that seemed unshakable, like Himring and Barad Eithel, became islands of resistance amidst the chaos. The impact of this battle was so devastating that many believed the end of Beleriand was near. But as always, the resilience of elves and men shone even in the darkest hours. Among Beleriand's many realms, few were as symbolic as Dor Lomin. This cold and mountainous land became home to the men of the House of Hador, who swore loyalty. To the elves, it was a place of fearless warriors and noble hearts from which legendary heroes like Húrin and Túrin Turambar emerged. In Tolkien's stories, Dor Lomin represents not just a geographical region, but a spirit of human resistance against forces much greater than themselves. Another crucial realm was Mithrim, known for its silvery waters and perpetually cloudy skies. It was here that many of the Noldor settled after arriving in Beleriand. Mithrim was more than a shelter. It was a symbol of hope and unity, where alliances were forged and strategies devised. The waters of Lake Mithrim reflected both the stars and the tears of those who had lost everything but still refused to give up. Finally, we arrive at Tolkien, the Isle of Werewolves, once a forward post of Finrod Felagund called Minas Tirith. Not to be confused with the Third Age city, the fortress fell into Sauron's hands. The island turned into a lair of horror and death, where prisoners were tortured and dark secrets were kept. It was also here that one of the most iconic scenes of the First Age occurred, the confrontation between Luthien, Beren, and Sauron. And as you can imagine, fortresses and battles wouldn't exist without monumental structures to support them. This leads us to the next topic, where we'll explore the most imposing fortresses of Beleriand. The fortresses of Beleriand weren't mere piles of stone and iron. They were symbols of resistance, hope, and often despair. Among the most legendary is Minas Tirith of the First Age, not to be confused with its Third Age namesake. Located on the island of Tol Sirion, it was a majestic fortress governed by Finrod Felagund, the noblest of the Noldor. Its purpose was clear: to watch Morgoth's movements and protect the southern realms. However, after falling into Sauron's hands, Minas Tirith became Tolkien, the Isle of Werewolves, a place of shadows and terror. The contrast between glory and decay has never been more evident. Another iconic fortress was Himring, the stronghold of Medros, son of Feanor. Built atop a rocky hill, Himring was virtually impregnable, offering a clear view of the vast plains around it. During the Dagor Bragolak, while other fortresses fell under Morgoth's fire, Himring stood firm, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Medros, with his iron determination, transformed this fortress into a symbol of resistance. Tolkien, with his narrative mastery, makes us feel the weight of every stone of that citadel. And then there's Nargothrond, the subterranean realm of Finrod Felagund, carved into the depths of the Turin Faroth Hills. Inspired by the caves of Menegroth in Doriath, Nargothrond was an architectural marvel, with vast halls and corridors illuminated by sparkling gems. But like so many things in Middle-earth, its downfall was marked by betrayal and tragedy. Glaurung, the father of dragons, marched through its halls, spreading destruction and fear. The echo of its last defenders' cries still seems to resonate in the pages of the Silmarillion. Another prominent fortress was Angband, the Iron Hell, Morgoth's lair. Although not a fortress built by elves, it was undoubtedly the most feared of all. Its black walls and smoking towers were like an open wound in the heart of Beleriand. From there, Morgoth unleashed his legions, dragons and Balrogs, spreading terror across Middle-earth. Those who dared to gaze upon Angband's gates knew they were facing the abyss between hope and perdition. Finally, Menegroth, the forest fortress of Thingol and Melian, built in the hidden caves of Doriath. Its 1,000 caverns were adorned with sculptures, tapestries, and gems that sparkled like stars. Menegroth wasn't just a fortress, it was a masterpiece. But even this enchanted refuge couldn't escape the tragedies of the First Age. The walls that once protected Melian's wisdom and magic became witnesses to betrayals and spilled blood. Now, as we step out of the shadows of the fortresses, we enter places that breathe mystery and enchantment. The mystical forests of Beleriand. The forests of Beleriand weren't just clusters of trees and shadows, they were living realms, pulsating, with ancient magic and unfathomable secrets. Nan Dungotheb, for example, was much more than a mere dark forest. Known as the Valley of Horrors, this region was a labyrinth of poisonous webs and suffocating shadows, ruled by Ungoliant and her spawn. Every step there was a risk, every breath a prayer. Tolkien describes this place as a living nightmare, where even fearless warriors hesitated to enter. It was a constant reminder that in Middle-earth, nature could be as terrifying as Morgoth's. Fortresses. Further north was Tor Nufuin, a dark and sickly forest, once part of Dorthonion. Once vibrant and green, Tor Nufuin was corrupted after the Dagor Bragolach, becoming a place of death and despair. The trees seemed to whisper ancient laments, while the dense fog concealed dangers in every shadow. It was here that heroes, like Beren, wandered, battling dark creatures while bearing the weight of Belarion's fate on their shoulders. This forest wasn't just a physical location. It was a living representation of the consequences of war and corruption. On the other hand, there was the majestic forest of Doriath, protected by the power of Melion's ring. Unlike other forests of Beleriand, Doriath was a safe haven, a sanctuary isolated from the outside world. Queen Melian, with her elven wisdom and divine power, wove an invisible barrier that prevented any invader from entering without her permission. Thingol's realm thrived under this protection, becoming a beacon of peace amidst chaos. Many say that walking beneath Doriath's trees made one feel the very heart of Middle-earth beating softly. Beyond the dark and enchanted forests, there were regions that seemed to exist outside of time. Places like Ithel Ivrin, where crystal springs were born, feeding the sacred rivers of Beleriand. There, it is said, the water had the power to heal wounds not only of the body, but also of the soul. Tolkien teaches us, in these small details, that even in the darkest hours, there are points of light and hope hidden within the world's vastness. And finally, there is something almost poetic in the way these mystical regions coexisted with Beleriand's realms and fortresses. While the stone walls symbolized strength and resistance, the forests represented mystery and transcendence. Both, however, shared an inevitable destiny, for on the horizon, the end of Beleriand was approaching, and with it, the fate of the forests, fortresses, and the peoples that inhabited them. In the heart of Beleriand's mountains, far from the vast plains and enchanted forests, lay the dwarf realms, masters of the forges and unmatched craftsmen. Belegost and Nogrod weren't just underground cities. They were stone fortresses carved with almost divine precision. Their halls echoed with the sound of hammers striking anvils, and the glow of molten metal illuminated the determined faces of the dwarves. While elves sought beauty in nature and men sought glory on the battlefield, dwarves shaped wonders with their own hands, creating weapons and jewels that would go down in Middle-earth's history. Belegost, also known as the Great Fortress, was famous for its skilled craftsmen and for being home to the most fearless dwarves. It was they who, with their fire-resistant armor, dared to confront Glaurung, the father of dragons, in direct combat. Tolkien gifts us with the vivid image of dwarf warriors covered in soot and sweat, facing the scaly monstrosity with unyielding determination. This bravery not only saved many allies, but also etched Belegost's name into Beleriand's legends. Nogrod, on the other hand, was a center of creation. It was known for its jewelers and blacksmiths, who produced some of the most deadly and beautiful weapons in all of Arda. It was there that the legendary dwarven necklace, Norglemir, was created, artifact that shone like a constellation caught in a gold chain. But like so many things in the First Age, greed and pride led to tragedy. The necklace, though magnificent, caused discord between the elves of Doriath and the dwarves of Nogrod, culminating in a war that devastated hearts and homes. These dwarf realms weren't just physical locations, they were symbols of a resilient and pragmatic people. While many elven kingdoms fell under Morgoth's shadows, the dwarves kept their fortresses intact, shutting their stone doors against the winds of chaos. Even during the final devastation of the War of Wrath, The realms of Belegost and Nogrod held out long enough for many of their inhabitants to escape and carry their traditions to other distant mountains. However, the end of Beleriand made no distinctions between elven forests, human fortresses, or dwarf realms. When the sea waters invaded the western lands, even the deepest halls felt the roar of final destiny. But as we will see in the next topic, the fall of Beleriand was not just an end, but also a new beginning for those who survived. The end of Beleriand did not come as a sudden blow, but as an inexorable tide that advanced slowly and inevitably. The War of Wrath, the final confrontation between the Valar and Morgoth, brought with it a power so overwhelming that the very continent could not withstand it. Imagine celestial armies marching under the command of Eönwë, the herald of Manwë, while dragons, Balrogs, and Morgoth's legions launched themselves against them in a clash that made the mountains shake. It was as if the very fabric of the world was unraveling under the weight of this war. Tolkien, with his unparalleled skill, describes this event as something beyond human comprehension, a dance between creation and destruction. As the war progressed, rivers changed course, mountains were split in half, and valleys were swallowed by cracks that seemed to lead into the void. And Calagan the Black, the greatest dragon ever to exist, fell from the skies, destroying everything in his path. It wasn't just a battle, it was the collapse of an entire era. The survivors, whether elves, men, or dwarves, watched their homes, and stories being erased by the advancing sea as they fought to reach safer lands. When Morgoth was finally defeated and imprisoned, the final price was paid. Beleriand sank beneath the waves, disappearing almost completely. The vast forests, the majestic dwarf halls, Gondolin's walls, and the fields where so many battles were fought, all were swallowed by the sea. What remained were only fragments of memories, stories whispered beneath Middle-earth stars. Some islands endured like Himring, but most of Beleriand became a myth, a memory preserved only in the oldest corners of elven songs. However, Tolkien teaches us that even the most tragic end can also be a new beginning. The survivors carried with them the knowledge, wisdom, and stories that once shaped their lives. Some departed for Valinor, while others journeyed to lands that would eventually become Eriador and Rohan. Many of the names we know in the Lord of the Rings have deep roots in the ashes of Beleriand. And so, the map of Middle-earth was redrawn, with new borders and new realms emerging from the waters that covered ancient Beleriand. But the legends did not die. They were passed on, like a beacon for those still seeking to understand the past and learn from it. And after all, isn't that exactly what we do when we explore the maps and stories of the First Age? After all, every line drawn on an ancient map holds secrets waiting to be discovered. Now that you've walked through the lost lands of Beleriand, explored its imposing fortresses, witnessed epic battles, and felt the weight of this legendary era's inevitable, and the question arises, what will you do with this knowledge? Tolkien didn't just leave us maps and stories. He gave us keys to understanding universal themes like courage, sacrifice, and hope in dark times. Looking at Middle-earth's maps, you realize they are much more than simple geographical representations. They are reflections of choices, destinies, and personal journeys. And perhaps, just like the heroes of Beleriand, you are also facing your own battles, navigating unknown territories, and building your fortresses against the shadows that seek to take control. But now I ask you, what are the maps you are drawing for your life? What battles are you willing to fight? And what fortresses are you building to protect what truly matters? Beleriand's story doesn't end with its land sinking. It lives on in each one who dares to learn from its lessons. If you enjoyed this journey, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us on more travels through the eras and maps created by J.R.R. Tolkien. Middle-earth still has many secrets waiting for you, and I can't wait to explore them. By your side, see you on the next adventure.